So far, we have talked about global scope and function scope, but JavaScript also supports what we call block scope. And as you may know, this is handled by the keywords let and const. So let's talk a bit about block scope. Now, first, using the code from the last topic, all the declarations were handled with var. What if we changed all of these to let? Would we get any different results? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to select all those using Command D on the Mac, and then I'll change them to let. So now they're all let. Go ahead and save that, and let's go ahead and see what the results we get. Open that console. 8, 13, 18. And that was the same thing that we got when we were using var. If we're not certain about that, we can just change these again really quick. Save it. 8, 13, 18. So same thing whether we're using let or var. So in the end, the code produces the same results. But we know that things are handled differently when we use let instead of var. First, the initial values of all the declarations are not set to undefined like they are in var. In fact, they're not assigned a value until the execution phase. Now, the variables themselves are placed in memory, but no value is assigned. Remember, undefined is a value. It is a value that indicates that it has not been defined yet. But in the case of using let, no value is assigned until we get to the statement and execute that statement. That's when the value is defined. So that is one difference. And there's another difference. So here we're using var. We have a variable a right here. We took a look at this a little bit earlier, but let me do it again. So opening up the window object, which is also the value of this. Notice here is our a variable, and here's our add5 variable. Both of those, because they're part of the global execution environment, are added to the global object. All right, now let's change those to let. Select them all again. Now, some of you are wondering how in Visual Code I select them all like that at once and change them all at once. It's just using the add next occurrence functionality that is inside the selection menu. So we've got those changed, and now if we save that, and now we take a look at the window object and open that up. Notice we don't have the a or the function as well. They're not attached to the global object when we declare them with let. Okay, so that's a couple of differences. Even though the code produces the same thing, we see a couple of differences. But let's get into the big differences, block scoping. First, we need to identify what a block is. Basically, a block is a set of curly braces. So we usually see that when defining a function right here. This is the starting block. Down here is the end of that block. We also see that in if statements and in loops. In a switch statement also has that type of block. So those are some places that we see blocks in JavaScript. And when we use let or const, that variable is scoped to that block. So right now, b is scoped to this block here, which is a function, which in all reality works the same way as var. Because JavaScript uses function scope, var would scope to the function as well. So we don't see a lot of differences here because our blocks that we have in this code are all functions. So let's look at an example that shows block scoping. So I'm going to comment out this one here, all of this code here, and we'll just add a new function. Whoops. going to accept a parameter, and then we're going to declare a num2 right here, and we'll set that equal to 20. And we're doing that with let. And then we have an if statement. And we're checking to see if num1 is greater than num2. Now here's our block. And inside that block, let num3 equal 10. So if num1 is greater than num2, then we're going to declare a new variable. Now we'll just do a couple of console log statements. We're going to log num1 plus num2. And we're going to log num1 plus num3. So now the only way num3 is going to be declared is if num1 is greater than num2. And num1 is what we pass into the function. So I'm going to pass in a number higher than 20. Let's go ahead and call that. Pass in 100, like that. All right, let's save that and see what we get. We get an uncaught reference error. num3 is not defined. So why are we getting that error? Well, because num3 is defined with the keyword let. And here is its block right here. And so that is the scope of num3. We can't access it outside of that block. It's not available outside that block. That is block scoping, which we're experiencing here with let. Now, because this function is defined on the global space with const, its scope becomes the global scope, even though we use const or let. It functions similar to var in establishing the scope. Now, the same type of thing we showed here, we can illustrate pretty easily without a function. So let me declare a variable x, set that equal to 1. Now here's our if statement. And this if statement is going to create a block for us. If x is equal to 1, then here's our block. We're going to declare x equal to 2. Notice we're using the same variable. But is it the same variable? Because of the scope difference, these are not the same variable. So now when we do console.log x here, and then also let's do one down here. And we'll do x for that one as well. What is the expected output? What are we going to see? Let's go ahead and save that and find out. We get a 2 and a 1. So this first console log statement, it logs out this variable, where the second console log statement logs out this one, because the scope of this x, the one that equal to 2, is here. And so this console log statement doesn't have access to it. Now, what if we were to comment out this declaration here? Then we'd get a 1 and a 1. So we still see a scope chain here. When we log out x, it doesn't see it within its block scope. It'll go higher, and it'll find it up here. Now, we usually associate blocks with structures like a function or an if statement or a loop. But technically, we could simply use curly braces to set up a block within our code. Let me show you that really quick. All right, so if I once again declare x and set that equal to 1, then I simply use curly braces to establish a block and set x equal to 2. Now if we do a console log statement down here on x, what is it going to produce? Well, it's going to produce 1, as we see right here. Because here is the block scope for this variable x. So with these examples, we're able to see how block scoping works. And that can be established with both let and const. Now, in the next topic, I want to look at another unique application of let that has to do with a for loop. So let's move on.